I'm Stephanie. I'm the marketing coordinator at Drake & Company, and this is...
I'm Peter. I'm the office coordinator here at Drake & Company.
And why don't you tell people a little bit about what else you do?
Absolutely. I'm the office coordinator, but also the resume specialist here. So as office coordinator, all of the resumes that are sent to Drake come to me. It's my job to get those routed to the recruiters. Of course, I answer the phones and help people out when they come in to meet with us as well. As the resume specialist, I help people put together resumes and cover letters and reference sheet from scratch, or update existing resumes and cover letters if they have something already done.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask Peter a few questions, and if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. The first question is, a lot of people wonder what should the length of their resume be. Do you have any tips?
One page is always great. Certainly once you've been in the workforce for a certain amount of time, 10, 15, 20 years, then there's nothing wrong with making it a two-page resume. It's always just a question of making sure, if it is 2 pages, that the content's going to be quality content. You've got to think about the fact that the person reading the resume probably is going through a big stack of them, and so you want to keep it as brief as possible. But on the other hand, if it needs to go into 2 pages to get it to your experience and your skill set, that's fine.
Okay. So what should people include on their resume? What are the most important things?
You know, the obvious thing is you have to have your dates of employment on there and what your titles were and, you know, what you did at each position. Your education needs to be on there as well. So all of that's pretty cut and dry. I think most people know that. But you have to keep in mind that the resume is an advertising tool. It's a commercial of sorts, too, so you want it to be kind of exciting. You want to include numbers and data and not just dry facts as well. So it's not just important what you did, it's how well you did it. So anytime you got a promotion or you saved the company money or you came up with an idea that somehow benefited the company, you want to make sure that you include that as a specific example so that you look like not just an employee but a standout employee that did a really good job at their job. So yeah, you want to make sure that you have your whatever your strengths are, you want to play to those. I always tell people to have a key skills section too, kind of just a quick summary of what they're especially good at. And I encourage people to put that at the top of the resume so that an employer can see right off the bat, if you hire me, you'll see that I'm good at this, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. It's just a chance for you to kind of show people what you can do. So yeah, make sure you have a key skills section on there.
Okay. Is it important for people to also include their volunteer experience?
Certainly can be. Yeah, if you've got gaps of employment or if you're applying for something that's a nonprofit position or kind of a civic-minded type of a company, then sure, volunteer experience can be a positive for you. In general, hobbies, personal interests, those kinds of things are not necessarily going to help you, unless if you're applying for something in the athletic industry and you've completed the Ironman, you certainly wouldn't want to put those kinds of things on there. But for the most part, you want to keep it professional, and employers are not necessarily going to be interested in what you do outside of work. They're interested in what you're going to do when you're there at the job.
Okay. So what should people not include on a resume?
Yeah, I think hobbies and a lot of times I do see people put that they're a golfer, they like to spend time with their grandchildren, or they like crossword puzzles, etc. And those are all fine things, and I have some of those hobbies myself, but it's just not relevant. And that's the key is everything on your resume should be relevant. It should be something that an employer wants to know about you. If they want to talk about those things in an interview, they might ask you some questions about what you like to do in your personal time. But on the resume, you want to keep it geared towards what the employer wants to see. And what they want to see is, are you qualified for this job, and what are you going to do if we hire you?
So sometimes you see resumes with pictures or more personal details like your weight, height.
Yeah.
Are those definite no-nos?
Just not necessary, yeah. Anything related to your marital status or, where you grew up or whether or not you have children or, a picture does not need to be on there as well. There are some industries where a picture might make sense if you're in real estate or something like that, but for the most part, yeah, those kinds of things just don't need to be on there. Religious affiliations also. You just don't want to do anything that might potentially turn off the employer, because really when you're sending the resume, you're trying to get to the interview stage. And they might have a lot of people with similar backgrounds, and so you don't want there to be anything that might rub them the wrong way. Just keep it relevant.
Okay. Are there any other tips you can offer or best practices, things that you see that people are doing right?
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, you've got to play to what your strengths are, especially if you're somebody who maybe is a little more entry level. You might be applying for a position that the company is saying, well, we'd like somebody who has experience in that area, and maybe you don't. So if you don't have that experience, then you've got to highlight what you do have, and that might be a degree that you recently finished, or an award that you've earned in the past, or internships that you've completed. If they want a certain amount of experience and you don't have that experience, it doesn't mean that you can't necessarily apply for a job. It just means you want to take a look at the job description and say, okay, they're looking for 5 or 6 things. I don't have the degree, or I don't have the 5 years of experience, but I've got 4 of the other things. Let me play up to what those are. And make sure those are near the top of your resume, and emphasize multiple times, and also mentioned in the cover letter as well, so that they can see, okay, this person doesn't have the experience, but they've still got the potential to do this job, and then you might get to that interview. And once you get to the interview, then you're close, and then you've got a chance to at least get that opportunity.
Okay. So finally, what can people expect if they use your resume service?
You're going to get a solid-looking resume that you can be happy with. It's going to play to your strengths. It's going to be something that's suited to you, and it's going to be something that you can quickly update in the future, because a year or 2 from now you might be looking at a different position. But what I do is give people something that's just a really strong base that highlights their skill set and has the layout and the template that I think most employers are looking to see. And then hopefully in the future, when you start seeing other opportunities, it's something that you can quickly update on your own and change it up if you need to. And it is important to always keep your resume fresh. I always tell people a couple times a year, update your resume, even if you're not looking for work. And sometimes the best time to do it is not when you're looking. If you just recently lost a position, you may not be in the best mindset. So take some time out to just update that resume. Always keep it fresh. Anytime you get additional responsibilities or a promotion or anything that's different about your current job, get right in there and update it, so that way you're ready if a recruiter contacts you, or if you do unfortunately get downsized or something happens, then you'll be ready, instead of then having to scramble around and call somebody like me for assistance later. But yeah, if you work with me, you're going to get a good looking resume that an employer will be happy to see.
What's that process like when someone comes in? What are the steps? How does that work?
I meet with folks just for about half an hour or so we can talk about your job history and your education background and what you're interested in doing next. And then I put together rough drafts of the resume, cover letter, also a reference sheet if you're interested in that as well. Of course, I email the drafts to you and have you take a look, and if there's things that you're not happy with, or any suggestions you have, of course, I work on those right away. I try to get people a draft within 2 to 3 days and get everything wrapped up within a whole week, because I know you're going to be anxious to apply and get that resume out there. So I work and get everything wrapped up within a week so that you can start sending that resume out.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just one question. I was speaking earlier this week at Madison College to a class, and we were talking about cover letters, and I just want to encourage people to think about using other people's words in a cover letter as well. It's sometimes hard for people if you're shy, or just regular people. It can be hard to kind of toot your own horn and mention something that is great about you. And in a cover letter, if you've kept performance reviews or letters of recommendation, reference letter type things, don't be afraid to take a sentence or two and either directly quote it or paraphrase it in your cover letter, because there can be a lot of power in what other people say about you as opposed to what you say about yourself. So that's just a great, simple thing to do to maybe upgrade that cover letter a little bit, is let somebody else do the talking for you.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us this week, and we will see you next time.
Thanks
Bye.
very much. Bye.